Hi everyone, Steve Elliott here. What I'm going to do today, I'm going into Artrage and I'm going to paint this picture in of a scene in St Ives Bay. A little bit of a lighthouse going off there from when I was on my oars last summer, and I'm going to do it as a watercolour. So not tried this before as a live stream. I haven't used watercolour in Artrage for an age. It's got to be probably nearly a year. So very excited. I've got everything set up, so let's get right into it. So here we have my canvas. I need to put my glasses on because I can't see much. And I want to just discuss a few things before I start. I've got the image loaded in as a reference, make it a little bit easier for me than looking off at another screen. Canvas settings, before I look at that, I just want to go into the edit screen, and I'm not going to resize the canvas or resize the painting. I just want to show you what size I've got it set at. I've got the width at 3,507 pixels and the height at 2,616, and that for me gives a nice size. It's in actual fact it's an A3 sheet at 300 dpi, so at that I can work quite comfortably. But if I look at the canvas settings here, I've changed the grain size to 300% and the roughness to 100% because I felt with it being a larger image, I needed to up the grain so I could see it. I couldn't really see it at all at that size, so that's what those settings are all about. Hello Anna, how you doing? Nice to see you here. Hi, 5 of 7. Hello. I'm wondering if you're a Borg or something like that. I don't know, sorry. Anyway, let's start. I've got a set of preset brushes that I've already loaded in. Delicate wet in water, but it's the delicate on dry and the unclean brush are the two that I'm going to start with, and I'm going to use the Arch Chaos blender. I really like that. And for drawing, I've got the soft tip pencil. I've got it set at 5% and a sort of a blue grey colour. I felt if I put it at black, it was just too harsh. So I've sort of gone for a greyer colour. Hi Tilge, how you doing? You know, 5 of 7, that's exactly the kind of thing I would say. 7 of 9 is a cousin. Right, let's get into this. So I've got my pencil drawn, picked, and I'm going to do a pencil drawing on one layer, but I'm not doing any detail or anything like that. This is going to be very, very sparse. So this is the top of the wall. And straight away you'll see I've started to make changes because on the photograph the wall is probably just below halfway. Well, I'm going to come down a little bit further. In fact, I need an eraser. Where's that? I think that's it. There we go. I'm just going to rub some of this out. Good start, innit? I've only drawn one line. Back to my pencil. I could have just turned this round, of course. I think I remember, Anna, that you'd drawn this. That's funny. It's not working as an eraser. I thought when you turn these Wacom pencils round, they should be set to erase. I remember you doing that drawing. I've been meaning to do this for ages and ages, but I just didn't get around to it. So I need to bring that down there a little bit, across there. You know, I'm kind of thinking, I'm planning on moving the boats and all sorts, you see. I'm going to have quite a big sky on this. So I'm even going to make my pencil a bit lighter, you know. But still grey, if I can. Yeah, that's better. If this was a piece of watercolour paper, I would have ruined it by now. Right. Got this tiny little lighthouse in. I don't need to zoom in or anything because I'm not really interested in detail to any great extent. One thing I would say with Artrage, with this reference image, if you try and resize it from here, it tends to move the image inside. Let's see if I can show you what I mean. You run the risk of doing that. And if you resize it from here, every time you go near it, the thing moves. So I find the easiest way is to resize them from the top left or right. So I'm just going to have a quick look at what the bottom of that lighthouse looks like. Yeah, I thought so. It's sort of black, almost level with the wall line. So this still, it does come down there kind of like that. I'm just wondering if I made this a bit big. You don't see me sketch on a painting very often when I'm doing the oil paintings, but when I do watercolors, I always start with a pencil sketch. Oh, what size is A3 in American? Well, A4 is 297 millimeters by 210 millimeters. So A3 would be 420 mil by 297 mil. I don't know what it is in inches, but that's it in mil. So that's my lighthouse done. That's it. That's the easy bit. And I'm going to kind of move these boats. I don't want them exactly where they are on this sheet of paper. And I'm oops. Just going to make that a little bit bigger. I'm not going to do the distant boats in. I'm sort of distilling this scene and making it a lot less complicated. I don't need all them boats in. They're just adding clutter, and it's just too much. It just doesn't need it. So let's get this horizon in here. I'm putting off drawing the boats. I once watched a video, and I'm going back a long time, where somebody said draw a figure of 8 for your boats, and it sort of comes kind of down like this and like that. Take your eraser, rub that bit out. I'm just doing this as a demo, and then you can sort of put that little bit in there. And you can see that's a quick and easy way to draw boats. Bit of a trick there. But that's not going to work for me here. Let's get rid of that. Right, I'm going to bring it up somewhat. And round. I've got a million lines in here. I've got to get rid of some of them. I don't need all of them. That's just going to confuse me later. I have to say the pencil tool in Artrage isn't the best. It's by no means as good as others I've used. I might change how the water is as well, actually. I might have the boats sort of more stuck in the sand. That's clearly not right. So that comes down there much more like that. That's better. Now it makes a bit more sense. Oh, I've rubbed the wrong line out. Good start. There we go. That's kind of it. So therefore I think I've made that go too high. Been a long time since I've drawn a boat. I thought my demo was much slicker than this one. But it is important that you get these right with the watercolour before you start painting. That'll do. That's getting there. Hi Tin Artist, how you doing? Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm liking Artrage 5. I am comfy in it, although I've already said I haven't done a watercolour in it for probably well over a year. So it's going to be interesting to see what I come out with. Just getting my initial sort of guidelines in. I will knock the opacity down on this layer as well, I think, at some point. When I do real watercolours, because I am a watercolourist, that's what I used to specialise in before I got into digital. Don't know what I picked there. I never rubbed out my pencil sketches, they stayed in. So this has got to go above the lighthouse. It kind of comes down to the front. Yeah, and they become an intrinsic part of the painting, never to be erased. There we are. That's my first boat. Very excited. I'm going to take the horizon down a little bit further, so I'm just going to rub that out. I'm loving this Cintiq, by the way. I could definitely recommend this to anybody if you're thinking of getting a tablet. Anna's saying the curves off on the boat. Which curve we're talking about, Anna? Ari's asking me about how does Artrage 5 compare with Rebel 3 and Painter 2019. It's a bit clunky, and you have to where Rebel 3 is very natural, in as much that the paint's organic and it flows a lot more as it does in Corel 2019. It doesn't in here, and you have to kind of invent ways of making it okay. The top curve, is it too curvy? I think oh god, I could be on this all night now. You have to invent ways to get a nice watercolor effect, which I'm going to show you later on. So it's not the best watercolor engine at all, but the brushes are quite nice and let you get some very realistic looking effects if you play around with them and use them properly. I think that's looking a bit better. It's still not 100%. I can see lots of things wrong with it, but that's not drawing now. What's up with that? Just something's not quite right. I suppose I could zoom in on this a little bit. That's better. I think I'm getting there. Good. Glad you like it. I was getting a bit worried. I was panicking a bit that it wasn't happening. Now, I'm going to sort of bring this wall along, and I'm ignoring the red boat and the blue boat behind the white boat. So now I'm going to try and get this other boat in here. I guess it's the bottom of it's in shadow, I'm thinking. Yeah, look, is it, or is it? Yeah, it's kind of curved, and I think it's just... You know, you think you've drawn the line right, and then you look at it 2 seconds later, and it's miles out. The nice thing about doing videos that you kind of upload once you've finished them, you can iron out all of these issues. And it is quite daunting doing a live because, you know, I could crash and burn. I could totally get this wrong. Now, I am moving these boats, so the masts might look slightly different. I don't want it to get in front of that lighthouse if I can, so I'm going to put it there. And then we've got this other one, kind of goes like that. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, you're right. It is a black one. I know you've painted this picture already, haven't you? So you've probably worked out all of these issues, Anna. So this is way longer than I normally spend on a sketch, unless I'm doing a sketch, like, you know, I'm sketching in Taysoy sketches or something like that. But by spending the time on the sketch, the painting will just come together really, really fast. And I've got one more boat that I want to put in, and then the rest is just not going to be there. That's sort of level that down a bit. I'm feeling my way into it now. The first boat seemed to like take forever, because I haven't been sketching or I've been editing videos all day. A mate of mine's come round with the band I'm in. Well, I say a band, there's only 2 of us at the minute, but we're doing a lot of songwriting and recording. So we was messing about with that all afternoon. So I haven't done much drawing, so it's taken me a little while to get my eye in. Honestly, that's my excuse, and I'm sticking with that. There. I've got this other kind of, that's another boat. This other mast that comes up here, can't see me doing that, you can't see the hand. There's this vertical mast, and then there's another one that sort of comes down there. I think that's on a different boat. Let's have a look. Yeah, you can see the other boat behind it, so I don't have to worry about that. Oops. So I can put that to one side, and now we're going to start painting. I think that's a nice little composition there. Got plenty of sky. 3 nice little boats. I've got space for some reflections. Get some sand in here. Water. Horizon line. It's all looking good. So what I'm going to do, first of all, create a new layer. Lock this layer. And then go on to this one. And I'm going to choose the delicate on dry brush. And I'm actually going to key in the size of the brush because I want it to be 300%. I do find that Artrage, you can't use a slider past 100%, and quite often I want to make much bigger brushes, because when I'm doing watercolour, I use a 2-inch decorator's brush to get paint on really quick, so I can do a sky in a matter of seconds, and that's what I want to be doing here. So now I've picked that brush, I'm going to change my colour up there. I'm looking for a colour that would be equivalent to an ultramarine blue in watercolour. So that is sort of pretty much in the middle of the blue and green part of the middle part of the blue spectrum band, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's pure colour. I want it to look as though I've mixed a little bit of burnt sienna into it or something like that. Okay, and then with this big brush, I'm going to move my photo out of the way so I can see it all. I might just shrink the size of the paper a little bit. See you at 5 of 7. Have a good day. What's left of it in the UK? It's getting on in the evening here, so not a lot left. And you had a sandy beach as well, Anna, so it looks like we're sort of thinking along the same lines. So anyway, here we go. Now that is perhaps a tad too bright, so I'm just going to undo that. Let's try that. What's that looking like? That's better. And I'm just going to get loads of colour on here. And I'm aiming to get it around this, sort of bring it down to this lighthouse. And I'm going to change the colour up a bit to a blue-green slightly. And mix that in. So it's mixing in. And then I'm going for a yellow ochre. So it doesn't look like a watercolour yet. I'm gradually making this lighter. There we go. And then I'm going to, and this is the magic bit, this is the bit that makes it look like a watercolour. I'm going to choose this Harsh Chaos Blender, change it to 300%. And then I'm going to start softening in those edges as though the paints are running together. Like that. Then I'm going to use the eraser and I'm just going to lift out the colour of the lighthouse, sorry, across the top of the wall a bit. Not all of it, just sort of, it's a bit like that. The sky's a bit purple, so I'm going to create another layer. The secret with watercolour, I think, is layering paint on top of paint. Go back to my delicate dry brush again. Change that back to 300. And whack a bit more colour on top of that. This might be too dark, but I can always change the opacity, knock it up a bit. Get that harsh chaos, change it to 300. Just soften off them edges. And go into here as well. And it's just giving it this sort of nice watercolour look. I might even change the blend mode. I'm just going to try changing the blend mode to this. And there's one called Watercolour. Yeah, that's nice. Although it does makes it a bit purple again. So let's just try a different one. Let's go. I'm going to try and multiply. No, I like the watercolour. I'll stick with the watercolour. I don't know of any other app that's got this blend mode on it. So you can see my sky's nothing like the photograph. I've totally made it up. Bit more colour down there. Make it a bit more dramatic, I think. I'm just going to change this up to 200 instead of 3. And this is like the water, the paint creeping into the water, I think. Oops. And I could probably even go another layer on top of that in a bit. But I'll leave it at that now. I think that's a nice looking sky. So what I want to do now is come back to this layer and put in the this distant horizon, or sure, I suppose the landmass. Tidy that up a bit. And then choose same brush, delicate on. I want to try the delicate wet in wet, see what that does. Because what I want to do is pick up a little bit of brown. Choose that off the palette actually, and just. I like that, except it's too big, so I'm just gonna take the brush down to about 50%. Hi Izzy, yeah, I have tried Rebel. I've made a video demonstrating Rebel, or trying it out, not demonstrating it really. I don't know how to use it that well to demonstrate it, but I have tried it, and it is on my to buy list. It's something that I'm going to get, but not as yet. I haven't invested in it yet because I've been I bought the Cintiq, and before that I bought Corel Painter, so kind of working in a budget and sort of building me toolkit up as I'm going, really. So it is on there. It is something I'm looking forward to getting. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I want to kind of push it back with the blue rather than Anna's saying the landmass needs a little green, so I was gonna let's use that delicate wet in wet again. I was gonna put some water in. It's a bit on the big side. So these colours are just sort of merging together. I may even go for a tiny little bit of a purple, and that will be like mixing a bit of alizarin crimson in the mix. I like this delicate wet in wet brush. Just tidying that up a bit. Want a nice sharp line there for now. I may even soften that up a bit. I might just take this Arch Chaos. Just push it into it. Just to try and soften some of those colours. I don't want it too strong. And then get the eraser again and just where I've gone below there and just soften that off a bit. Whoops. I need to get something on here because I'm struggling with tones. So I'm going back to the delicate on wet. Probably I'll just try to oops, I was touching the wrong slider then. I'm looking for a blue green. Yeah, I've tried Paint Storm Studio as well. Is he? Yeah, I've had a go with that one. Thanks, Ant. Sorry, thanks, Anna. Getting lazy there with names. Put a bit of purple in. So this is typically how I do a watercolour in Artrage. So it's nothing like you would paint a watercolour. Nothing at all. Whereas Rebel is much more intuitive and works like watercolour paint. This doesn't. You are inventing ways to make something look like watercolour, I guess. So I've got this, and what I want to do at this point is sort of bring this into a sandy colour. Let's make that a big brush again. And I like the way it's just flowing together. And it can, you know, it can overlap here. I'm not worried at this point. And if I strengthen the colour in the foreground, that is going to push it forward. Push the foreground forward, I should say. And I can strengthen these colours up more if I like. Get that harsh chaos brush. And let's try 200%. So that is looking, I think, quite like a watercolour. I'm just gonna use the eraser. Now this is a technique that I use all the time with watercolour painting, where I'd just be softening this with a bit of water and then touching it with a tissue. So it's not like I'm cheating using an eraser for this, and people saying, oh, you can't rub out in watercolour. You totally can. You totally can. Just blend them in a little bit. There. And I think what I need to do now is save this, because I haven't saved it yet. I'll give it a name. Yeah, I'll give it a name. He's saving. I don't know where I'm putting it, but it's saving it, so that's cool. I have to say I'm liking this. I'm very happy with how it's going. Hi Eduardo, how you doing? Nice to see you. Landscape painting. For years and years, landscape painting is all that I did. I didn't do anything else at all. So yeah, landscape painting has been a passion of mine for a long time. But more recently, I've started to get into portraits, and I really enjoy painting portraits just as much as I like doing landscapes. And I haven't painted, once upon a time, all my landscapes were like this. They were all watercolours, very similar to this. And I did that for a long time. I really liked them, really enjoyed them. And it's nice, I'm really enjoying doing this now, getting back to this. But yeah, I wouldn't say landscapes are my favourite. if I'm in the mood for a landscape, I love it, totally love it. But likewise, I'm now really getting into doing portrait work as well, which I really enjoy. Hi Kuwa, thanks. That's a technique I've been using a lot, and it's not one I invented. Well, it's one I've adapted digitally, but there's lots of watercolorists. One, if you want to Google a watercolorist that really, what's the word I'm looking for? I watched all his videos back in the day when everything was on VHS and there was no internet or anything. I used to go and get his videos out and look at them, and inspired me a lot. His name's David Bellamy. I'm sure you'll be able to find him on the internet, and you'll see he does hundreds of skies like this. So yeah, really cool painter. So I'm back on that bottom layer. I'm just going to put a little bit of colour in the wall, and then I'm going to change up the layers a bit, I think. I've got this delicate on dry, and I kind of want to leave it a little bit of white, you know, where the sun might be catching that wall, like that. No need to zoom in on anything yet. And down here as well. And I just think those highlights really just make it pop. And then I can soften it. I always like to, I'll be doing this with a brush with water, if it was a real watercolour painting. Just softening up those edges like that. So I think this is looking, you know, pretty cool, pretty much like a regular watercolour. A little bit on the side of the lighthouse. Like that. Just taking the blending brush down the size a bit so I can get in there without damaging everything else. Just by softening that off, it adds a little bit of curve to it. There. Very happy so far. Kuwa, if you, I don't know if you use an iPad or not, Artrage on the iPad is a great little app. It's a lot cheaper than buying it for the PC, and I do a lot of paintings on the iPad rather than in Artrage 5 on the PC. So that might be something you'd want to try, especially if you want to look at thick paint, because the thick paint engine in Artrage is freaking awesome. It's really good, really good. Anyway, I'm just going a little bit darker, and I'm going to, whoops, I kind of need to choose a brush. Just paint inside this boat. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to undo that, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, just so I can be a tad neater. And I'm not trying to copy the colours of the photograph either. But what is nice about watercolour is you can sort of drop colours in. So if I've got a grey colour there, I can mix a bit of a brown in it. And a blue. There we go. And that does look like sort of paint mixing together. So quite happy with that. I'll tell you what, Eduardo, I've never painted a picture in Photoshop. I used to use it a lot when I was I worked as a web designer for a college for about, I don't know, 15 years or more, and I used it nearly every day, every single day. So I'm really familiar with Photoshop, and I know it really, really well. In fact, I probably know it better than any other painting or digital app, sort of artwork app, except maybe CorelDRAW, which I know really, really well, and those two. But I've never ever used them in my hobby as painting. I think when there was two reasons why I've not used Photoshop. One, I don't like the pricing model. I can't afford at the minute to fork out. Oh, I could afford £10 a month, but I'd probably want, you know, the old Adobe suite. So that's kind of out of the question. And I wanted to see what else was out there, because I've used these other apps for such a long time, and I was so familiar with Photoshop and that I just wanted to explore other avenues, and especially for the iPad, because what got me into painting was the iPad, and it was Artrage, actually was the first painting app I ever had, and totally loved it straight away. I just loved the natural medium, and I bought a cheap stencil for like a couple of quid that got no touch sensitive or anything. It was just a bit of metal with a rubber on the end of it, that I used to sort of paint with, and I did some nice paintings on my first generation iPad, and that kind of got me into it. And then I didn't bother for ages, because it was you still couldn't get anything convincing, because I didn't have the right gear, you know. I didn't have a Cintiq or anything like that. So I kind of left it for a while, for a few more years, and then came back to it again. And when I did, I totally was looking for, I bought myself an iPad Pro and was just looking for apps for that. So that's why I've not used Photoshop as well, because obviously Photoshop isn't on the iPad, although I believe it's coming soon, or it even might be here now. I do like that kind of turquoisey colour, so I'm going to keep that. I need to zoom out again now, just to see where we're going. This purple sky is all a bit strong, I'm thinking. Oh, Izzy, I didn't know that. Project Gemini, that's something I need to look out for then. So that is apparently a new painting app from Adobe that's coming out on the iPad soon. So one to watch out for. I need to knock that purple back. So So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just switch this layer off, the top layer off, and then I'm going to do something quite radical. I'm going to get the eraser, make it 300, and rub this sky out. And you know, I'm not cheating, because I tell you, when I used to teach watercolor painting classes, I would often take a painting to the sink when it was at this stage and run it under the tap and wash off part of the sky like that. Just like that, and then paint it over again. So I can't reduce the opacity of the sky because it's on the same layer as the rest of the painting. So that's why I'm doing this. But this is going to work. Trust me. Right, let's try that. Too dark. And maybe a little bit too green. Yeah, I thought about doing that, Eduardo. I thought about doing a digital watercolor course. I could do it in Procreate or Artrage, because the brushes in Artrage aren't kind of user friendly. You do have to work with them a little bit to get something realistic out of them. So that's kind of softened that up a lot. A lot. Now let's turn that other layer on and see what we're looking at. How much better is that? Yeah, I'm liking that. I think that is now it's much more even. I might put a little bit more colour back onto it on another layer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lock all of these layers now. I'll try not to delete them. And create another layer. So you'll notice in the watercolor, when I'm painting watercolor, I create loads and loads of layers. Well, 4. I've got 4 layers so far. I know a lot of people use a lot more than that, but when I'm doing oils, I try and keep it as few as I can. But with oils, with watercolor, I like to lay colour on top of colour, because that's how watercolour is. It's a translucent medium. So if you don't do that, you're never ever going to get that right effect. This sky is so much better. That to me looks like ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mixed together to get that. I'm really chuffed with that. So let's go back in, and so I've got the kind of ground colour on. I've got you know, all the elements in it I want. The sky's pretty much finished. What I need to do now is start thinking about painting in some darker shadows and form on this wall and what have you. So the size of the brushes that I select will probably be okay. At say 31%, that's the sort of default size I've got. And I'm going to go into a yellowy orange colour. And if I just sort of zoom, I'm going to look at the wall. I think it's got this sort of dirt and stones, square stones and things chiseled out of it or set in it. Oh, it's got a little bit of a staircase there as well, so I could probably get that in. So that staircase is sort of there. Just put in it that colour now, but it will be darker. So I'm just going to sort of start painting in what I consider to be detail of this wall. And you know what? Let's save it. I ain't saved it since I don't know when. Little drink break there. And I'm going to use the Harsh Chaos brush. Let's make that 30% as well. I should create a load of presets that default to the size I want when I just click on them, because it really is annoying having to keep changing the size. That's that. The stairs there. The nice thing about this is that the colours beneath glow through exactly as they should. A bit stronger colour just for this bit. And what you don't want to do is kind of bring this right to the end like that. That's a big no-no, because it would just take your eye straight out of the painting. So I'm going to stop it sort of maybe there, something like that. And leave breaks in it as well. Using square keys now to change the size of that brush. Just this is like adding water to it. It just makes it look like watercolour. And I think that white's really important as well. There we go, that's pretty much the wall done. Inside of that boat with the same colour. I'm going to unlock that bottom layer. Choose the eraser and just I'll take it down to size a lot. Hi Kerry, how you doing? Nice to see you. I just want to make that boat pop a bit by lifting out the colour. There we are. Yeah, that's it. And I'm even going to lift a little bit of sort of light off there. Set the size down a bit. Choose that harsh chaos brush again, and then I can just soften them edges up. just going to sample that colour, the sort of turquoise, and just try and. Oh, I need to choose a brush, don't I, to put the colour back in. Yeah. And then that harsh chaos again. So this harsh chaos blender is the secret, I think, to getting that realistic watercolor look. That's too purple. Better. Get the eraser again. I want a more defined colour there. That's it. There we go. Make that a bit darker. Hi Harry, I'm using this one now. All I know is that it came with the Cintiq 16, so I think it's got 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity on it. It's the most up-to-date pen, and it really is nice. It does feel nice. To be honest with you, though, it doesn't. I think the iPencil on the iPad is equally as good. It really is. It doesn't feel a deal different to me, to be honest. So yeah, it's the regular pen that comes with the Cintiq, and I've got the regular nib in it. I haven't changed that out for a felt nib or anything like that. It's just the regular sort of hard plastic nib, and that feels fine. On this sort of matte screen, it feels great. So I'm going to lock that layer again now. I'm going up to the, I can't remember what I've got on that layer. Oh right, okay. So I've got some detail on the bones, some detail on the walls. So I'm going to add a little bit more colour into the water. I just want it a little bit bluer than that. That's it. So this is turning out to be quite a delicate watercolour, to be honest. Paint that up to there and get that harsh chaos. Just blend it away a little bit. Lovely. I didn't watch the Oscars, Eduardo. No, I'm very pleased that the Queen movie won a lot of awards, because I did go to see that and really enjoyed it. It was absolutely cracking film. There's a little bit of a wave here that I want to kind of get in if I can. It's too big. Let's undo that. Just make my brush a bit smaller. Oops, too small. But that's all I know of the awards. I didn't see anything else. But yeah, I do like the cinema. I like going to the cinema. Is that, yes, it is my photo, TN Artist. It's one I took when I was on holiday last summer. So yeah, it's one of mine. In fact, you can actually download it. If you go to my website, there's about, I don't know, something like 500 photos that I took when I was in Cornwall. And I know Anna, I don't know if she's still here, but she downloaded a few of them and used them to paint. She's actually painted this picture from this photograph, I believe. That might be a little bit too much. But I don't want to cover up that white if I can help it. There, that's sort of lapping on the shore a bit. Choose the eraser. Now the thing is, because they're on a different layer, look, I can get rid of them without damaging the underlying boats. Like that. Choose my blender again. Just soften that off a little bit. So you see how it's building up slowly. I'm adding layers all the time, and we're getting there and getting this AstroPad. No, what's AstroPad? I haven't tried that. Whoops. I just wanted that to be somewhat darker. I don't know if I'm going to like it when I've done it, but I don't want it to be, I don't want the painting to be too insipid. A few. Anna said earlier to put some greens in, so I'm now taking her advice and doing that. Yeah, by putting that in, I like that, but by putting that in now, I need to start putting other darks in, because that is kind of dominating everything. So I'm just going to sample that yellow and then go a lot darker. Oh, have I? That must have been something I said. Anna's just said that I've mentioned in the stream that I was using Corel Painter, and I did change it before I went to this this video, but clearly it's not updated it. I did it just like 2 minutes before I started the stream, and for some reason it seems to have defaulted back to Corel Painter and not Artrage 5, which is clearly what this is. So I must have done last week's video wrong as well, because last week's video was in Artrage 5, but I did an oil painting, and so if it's saying now, if it's saying Corel Painter 19, it must have said it for that as well. Oops, don't like that. That's coming out a bit too much. I suppose I've got to get these masts in at some point as well, which is a bit terrifying. Let's better. I should zoom in a little bit. I think I'm sort of kind of struggling the size. There we are. Why, you know, I do that all the time. I struggle working on a tiny little thumbnail when I could be zooming in and doing something, you know, at a much more appropriate scale. These colours do blend together nice, I have to say. That's wrong. Let's come back a bit. That's better. Put one in there like that. And I want to just choose some blue and just trickle some blue into here. There we go. I always think watercolours, it's not about painting loads of detail. It's much more subtle than that. I like that little lighthouse. Yeah, that's looking all right. A few people on here. If I choose the brush. Right, and now you know what, TN artist, it's just asking, do I draw the lines in by holding the control and dragging the cursor? And no, I don't. Let's see what happens if I do that. You do get really nice straight line. In fact, you know what, I might actually, I was going to say no because they look so artificial. With the oil paint brushes, they look terrible. But that didn't look bad. It was just too thick. So I'm just going to change. Let's try this. See what we get. Oh, that's too thin now, isn't it? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a new layer for this. Then I can soften and blend them a little bit. Let's just make it a tad thicker. Maybe even thicker than that. It does work, Annie, you're right. That's a quick way of getting them in, isn't it? I'm digging that. They do look too straight though, so what I'm going to do, I am going to fiddle about with them a little bit. Just changing the colours up on them. I don't want them all the same. This is going to shorten this live stream by about 45 minutes doing that. You know what? I'm glad you suggested that. That looks great. But what I'm going to do now, I'm getting my Arch Chaos brush. I'm taking it down really small, and I'm just going to go over the edges. And soften them up, look. Just not all the way down, but just in places, just to give it that, make it look like it's been painted in by hand and not cheated using. If I was doing this on a watercolor, what I would actually do, I would take a square brush. You know, a brush like I've got one in here. No, I haven't got one. This is the nearest thing I've got to a square brush here. So imagine that being flat, and I would dip that in the water, and I would just touch the edge of the tip of the paper with the brush, and work my way down it, and just touch the masking like that, and you get a really nice straight mass that look as though they've been painted. Make that a bit smaller still. Just gonna get the eraser. Oops, what have we done there? I just brought it out too much. That's it. It just adds that bit to it, doesn't it? It just sort of stops them looking like you've used a straight edge. So I remember that. It definitely doesn't work with oil paint. It's just, it looks really, really awful. But with the watercolour, it looks quite nice. And then I'm going to choose a bit of blue. Choose my delicate brush, make it really small, and just drop bits of colour into the mast. Look. This is all things I would do if I was doing a genuine watercolour. So it all adds to that watercolour effect. And a bit of red as well. When I say red, I mean a burnt sienna, so it'd be a browny colour, which is pretty much what these two masks are anyway. Yeah, that's looking quite nice. Now I'm going to go in with a darker. I think I'll try this colour. Zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. Now I've sort of got the shadows in and everything. I'm looking at the detail now. There's something there, I don't know what that is, just sort of. And as you probably know by now, I like to drop a little bit of pure colour into the wash. Just makes it sparkle a little bit. Dropping that colour in again. I could probably even strengthen that up a bit more. I've got to be careful though, because I'm sort of looking at it from a different, you know, really close up, and I'm not seeing all of the other colours. Whoops. Zoom out again. Oh, that's looking all right. Oh yeah, I've got to do the reflections in the water. I kind of haven't quite got used to the buttons on the side of this pen yet, and quite you'll see I'm bringing up that menu. I think it's time I saved it. So let's see. Sort of wet sand. I've kind of got to make this up because I've got no idea what it's going to look like really. Let's go. No, let's try it at this size. Looks a bit radical at the minute, but kind of got to get these colours in the foreground, otherwise the old painting is going to look somewhat flat, and I kind of want to get that a reflection of the sky in it as well. And then really strong colour at the front. Get me blending brush. Start making it look like a watercolour. I bet there's an option to make this auto save, you know, if I took the time to look at it. That's looking quite like water, isn't it? And sand. These masts then. I need a small brush for that. They would be broken up like that, I think. Sort of like that. Yeah. I'm going to make another layer, and I'm just going to put a few gravelly bits of sand in, I think. That wheel keeps popping up, so annoying. And this just sort of leads you into that. And there we go. I think that is pretty much nearly there. I don't know as if I want to do much more to it, to be honest. Let's shrink this down if I can. Move it out of the way. All that remains is to sign it, and when I sign watercolours, I always sign them with the pencil, so that makes it nice and easy. And I think I'll do it down here. There we go, my seascape of St. Ives Bay. That brings us to the end of the live stream, I guess. Thanks, Kerry. I totally agree with you. I think it's looking fab too. And thank you all so much for joining me this evening and keeping me company and asking me questions. It's been really great. I'm loving this live streaming. I'm loving talking to people. So I shall be doing this every week. Well, perhaps not every week, but a lot of weeks, as many as I can. I hope you'll all enjoy the rest of your day or the rest of your evening. Thank you so much, and hopefully, oh, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed and you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, like the video, share it, and all that stuff helps me out a lot. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.